Somewhere right now there is a post sitting in a feed that nobody can call. A short paragraph, a single image, a clean little caption underneath it. It reads fine, it looks fine, and if you ran it through every tool built to answer one question, was this made by a person or a machine? The honest answer that comes back is a shrug. It is not obviously fake. There are no garbled hands, no melted text, none of the old giveaways people learn to laugh at. It is just ordinary. And ordinary is exactly the problem because the entire detection business depends on machine-made things looking a little bit wrong, and they have mostly stopped looking wrong. This is the newest front in the long war this channel has been walking through all season, and it is the hardest one yet. The question nobody can answer cleanly. Every other detection fight has a tell to grab onto. A bot moves too fast, an address sits in the wrong place, a fingerprint repeats across 1,000 accounts that claim to be strangers. There is always some physical fact underneath, some trace the faker leaves in the world that the defender can measure. Telling human from machine-made content is different and worse because the thing being judged is just words and pixels. There is no connection to trace, no device to fingerprint, nothing that happened in the real world to leave a mark. There is only the artifact itself sitting there and the impossible task of deciding what kind of mind produced it. That is a question about the content alone, and content is the easiest thing in the world to copy. What platforms are actually trying to do. So when a platform says it can detect AI-generated material, what does that even mean? Broadly, there are 4 approaches, and they sit on a spectrum from guessing about the artifact to proving something about its origin. It helps to lay them out before pulling each one apart. The first is statistical classifiers, systems that study the content itself and estimate how machine-made it looks. The second is watermarking, a faint signal hidden inside the content at the moment it is created. The third is provenance, a cryptographic record of where a file came from and what touched it. And the fourth is behavioral, watching not the content but how it is posted and spread. Each one fails in its own particular way, and understanding why is the whole story. The detector that reads the tells start with classifiers because they are what most people picture. The idea is simple enough. Machine-made text and images carry faint statistical habits, patterns in how words follow words, or how pixels sit against pixels that differ slightly from the way a human tends to produce the same thing. A classifier learns those habits from millions of examples and then scores anything new. For a while, this worked well enough to feel like magic. The early models were predictable. They reached for the same comfortable phrasings, smoothed their images in the same telltale ways, and the trained detector could spot the rhythm. It was reading the accent of the machine. Why the tells keep fading? The trouble is that the accent keeps softening, and it softens precisely because detectors exist. Every time someone builds a classifier that catches a particular tell, that tell becomes a target, and the next generation of the machine is shaped, deliberately or not, to stop producing it. The giveaway gets trained away, and there is a deeper problem underneath. The false accusation. A classifier never says yes or no. It produces a probability, a guess dressed up as a number. Push it hard enough to catch most of the fakes, and it starts flagging real people too. The careful writer whose prose is a little too clean, the student who happens to write in a plain, even style. When the cost of being wrong lands on a real human accused of cheating, a probability is a dangerous thing to lean on. The detector that reads the tells is reading an accent that is fading by design. The signal hidden in the work, so the next idea moves the work earlier. If you cannot reliably tell after the fact, mark the content at the moment it is made. This is watermarking, and it is cleverer than the visible logos people imagine. The signal is woven into the substance of the thing itself. In text, that can mean nudging the model towards certain word choices in a faint statistical pattern, invisible to a reader but detectable by anyone holding the key. In images, it can mean a perturbation spread across the pixels, no visible mark. just a quiet signature baked into the noise. The appeal is obvious. Instead of guessing whether something is machine-made, you can simply check whether the secret signal is present, while a watermark washes out. But a watermark only survives if the content survives untouched, and content almost never survives untouched. An image gets cropped, compressed, screenshotted, saved again, run through a filter, text gets reworded, trimmed, paraphrased, pasted into a different shape. Every one of those ordinary acts erodes the hidden signal, and enough of them wash it out entirely, without anyone needing to attack it on purpose. Think about how content actually travels. Nothing reaches you in the state it was made in. It has been recompressed by the platform that hosts it, resized for the screen you hold, stripped of metadata for privacy, maybe shrunk to fit a message. The watermark has to survive all of that handling just to be there when a detector finally looks, and a signal faint enough to stay invisible is rarely tough enough to make that whole journey intact. And someone who does want it gone has an easier time still, because the signal has to be subtle enough to stay invisible, which is the same as saying fragile enough to disturb. There is a second catch that matters more. A watermark only marks what its own maker chose to mark. The cooperative systems sign their output. The ones that do not care simply do not. And the world where only the honest label themselves is a world where the absence of a watermark proves absolutely nothing. The receipt attached to the file, which leads to the most ambitious idea of the four, provenance. Stop trying to detect the fake and instead prove the real. The notion is to attach a tamper-evident record to a piece of content, a cryptographic receipt that travels with the file and says where it came from, what device or program created it, and every step that edited it along the way. Done properly, this is genuinely strong. The record is signed, so it cannot be quietly altered without breaking the seal, and it does not try to guess anything. It does not ask whether the content looks machine-made. It simply carries a verifiable history, and you decide what to trust based on that history rather than on a hunch about the pixels. The method that only works if everyone joins. So why has provenance not ended the whole argument? Because it only works if everyone adopts it, and everyone never does. A signed history is only as useful as it is universal. The moment some cameras, some programs, some platforms attach the receipt and others do not, you are back in the same swamp, where missing provenance means either a fake or just a file that passed through something that did not sign it. And provenance is brittle in a quieter way. Strip the record, and you are left with bare content and no claim attached, which on most of the internet is simply the normal state of things. The standard cannot punish the absence of itself without treating the entire unsigned world as suspect. So the cryptography is sound and the seal is real, and still the system only delivers on its promise in the narrow world that agreed to use it. The receipt is unforgeable and trivially absent. The tell that lives outside the content. The fourth approach gives up on the artifact entirely and watches the behavior around it instead. This is the same instinct that runs through the rest of the season, the idea that what you cannot prove from one thing alone, you can often read from the pattern around it. A single post might be unjudgeable. 10,000 of them moving together are not. So platforms watch the spread, content that floods in from many fresh accounts at once, posted in an unnaturally even rhythm, echoing the same shapes across a coordinated push, looks like a campaign no matter what any single piece of it contains. The machine-made nature of the individual post stops mattering. The pattern of how it arrived is the signal, and the pattern is far harder to fake convincingly than any single artifact. Why behavior is not enough either, but behavior catches coordination, not creation. A single person quietly using a machine to write one ordinary post leaves no behavioral trace at all because there is no pattern, no flood, nothing moving information. The loudest abuse is visible and the quiet, individual use, which is most of it, slips straight through. And behavioral signals carry their own version of the false accusation. Real people sometimes move in ways that look coordinated a genuine crowd reacting to the same news, an honest community sharing the same link. Lean too hard on the pattern, and you sweep up real voices along with the manufactured ones, so behavior is a real signal and a blunt one, good at catching the campaign and useless against the individual. The hardest arms race yet. Step back and you can see why this front is harder than every other one in the season. In all the earlier fights, there was friction on the faker's side, a cost, a trace, some physical fact that anchored the lie to the world and gave the defender something to grab. Here the lie is just content, and content has almost no friction left. Worse, the fakes improve at exactly the speed the detectors do, because they are built from the same underlying advances. Every leap that makes a classifier sharper also makes the next generation of machine-made content smoother and more human. And the gap the detector opened closes again almost immediately. In the other arms, races the defender could sometimes pull ahead and stay there. In this one, the two sides are bolted to the same engine, and the engine only ever accelerates. What the contest really is. So where does that leave the question we started with? There is no single tool that cleanly tells human from machine, and there probably will not be one, because each approach answers a slightly different question, and each leaves a gap the others cannot cover. Classifiers guess and sometimes accuse the innocent. Watermarks wash out and only mark the willing. Provenance proves origin but only inside the club that adopted it. Behavior catches the flood and misses the individual. What actually holds the line is all of them. Layered, none of them trusted alone, each covering a little of where the others fail. And that is the shape of every fight this season has walked through. Not one clever trick that settles it, but a stack of imperfect signals, quietly weighted against each other, holding an uneasy line against the next thing built to slip past them. The contest does not end. Which is the note to close Season 2 on. Every episode this season was the same story, wearing different clothes. Someone builds a machine to look like something it is not. Someone else builds the machinery to see through it, and the contest between them never resolves. It only escalates and moves to fresh ground. This front, telling the human from the machine, is just the newest ground. It will not be the last. The fakes will keep improving and the detectors will keep adapting, and neither will ever finish, because the whole internet runs on that endless contest underneath. The people who build the illusion and the people whose job is to break it. That is the thread the whole channel pulls on, and it does not run out. So thank you genuinely for following Season 2 all the way to the end. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself turning over, the quiet machinery under the surface of everything you scroll past, then this is your sort of place. There is no product here, nothing to sell you, just the systems taken apart and explained from the inside. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Season 2 ends here, but the channel does not. There are more of these threads than any one season could hold. More hidden systems quietly deciding what you see and what you believe, and we will keep pulling on them one at a time for as long as there is machinery left to take apart, until the next one.